Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is not every day that I get to bring you two newcomers making their castover debut at the same time. It's Comicalflop as Protoss versus MartinoForce as Random, and we will be playing on Axiom, Fata, Morgana, and Impetus 2 in this best of three. Let's see what happens. Well, I don't know if it's actually a best of three as much as it is a three-game set. But anyway, Comicalflop will be in the top right, and MartinoForce will be in the bottom left. Worth noting that this is on the previous release, not the matches that we've seen on the casted channel most recently, but this set is actually going to be from the Acropolis #1 tournament patch. They were playing on that version. And apparently, let me see if I remember this correctly. I think Comicalflop said that basically asking where do I submit a match for cast, and it was he was saying that these two guys weren't necessarily the most experienced, they were newer to the project, and I don't know what their level of play actually is. So we could be in for a very interesting set of games, even if it might not be the highest level. I actually don't know what to expect at all from these two guys, but you always temper expectations with new guys, and it looks like here that... he's actually gone off to the top left. I'm going to assume they know where the spawns are, so maybe this is for some kind of proxy. But I guess it could also be that he's checking to see if this is a force spawn map. Let's see what MartinoForce is up to down here as Terran. We don't see Terran too often. He's going to go for a Stockade versus Protoss. Again, Comicalflop picking Protoss, MartinoForce selecting Random and rolling Terran, is how I understand how this one goes. And indeed, it is actually a proxy. Okay. Well, let's see what else Comicalflop is doing. That's a name that really rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? Comicalflop. I mean, it's just two words you would probably say sometimes together. We'll see if Mr. Flop wants us to do that pretty often, or if he wants us to say that about his opponent. You know, you never know. But yeah, apparently these guys are fans, so, you know, we get, friends of each other, and maybe fans of the project. We get people, new people trying out the game all the time, and I'm here to change people's minds, okay? We don't always have to cast really high-level games. We don't always have to cast really established names. And as of right now, it looks like Comicalflop is going to go ahead and proxy Lattice. The worker counts are very, very low in this game, so I am already ascertaining that this is going to be a more entertaining set than maybe what we are used to. But hey, this is the kind of stuff that we like to see, so... As a general note, and maybe somewhat connected to this, I will be attempting to host a tournament in the month of June that is going to be an underclass invitational. So you can maybe see some of these guys here joining for that. But the players who are kicking ass taking names over in the invitational right now, in Acropolis #1 before that, you're probably not going to see those guys show up as players. Let's just put it that way. Now, we do have Comical moving his worker across the map. We've got one of every unit so far out of the Stockade that you can make without the add-ons, and he's going for a Scrapyard, so interesting choice of units there as he adds more Mavericks to the thick of things. Of course, it'll be Vassals in the corner, and Mr. Flop will continue building up Legionnaires off of the Gateway. Again, his worker count is quite low, and we actually have a Quarry coming for Martino, so working out the idea that he wants to go for more on the side of the macro side, you know, and he wants to play a little bit defensively. He's got his Huracan, and let's see where he's going to head out. He's actually moving across the map. I can tell that he's not used to grid yet, and he must have hit the patrol key by A moving instead of E moving. But you can turn off grid in config if you so desire, if you want to go back to the StarCraft 1 style stuff, although it doesn't have, you know, P for probe or whatever. That's not a thing anymore. You wouldn't say P for scribe anyway. It's actually E. Check that out. Workers are going to go ahead and units are going to go ahead and march on. MartinoForce, MatadorForce. I mean, these both start with M, have an A in it, an R as well. So, just saying. And, yeah, besides that, I guess you can't spell Martin without Mart, and Matador contains those letters. Now, the Huracan bravely charges forth. It is, of course, Ahmed. We love Ahmed, but unfortunately, the Mavericks are also going to be cut down. And this is definitely one of them nerf toss moments. Well, the Cyprian might not be able to evacuate here, but Flop is too busy, minding his own business, building lattices or vassals in the corner to really heavily pursue this. So he's going to go ahead and give it the old college try. I think he might just be right-clicking on the unit over and over again, but what you actually want to do is kind of lead a little bit and then attack move. This is Brood War at its finest right here. But hey, they get him! Body blocked by the Cyprian. It'll be a lot easier to get the Cyprian. There you go. Eviscerated. Well, the Matador is deployed on the cliff. The flamethrower does not benefit from cliff advantage, so you would want to undeploy it so that it doesn't do that. But hey, you know what? He's going to deploy it. He's going to set them on fire. maybe it'll be effective. Ministry on the low ground. There you go. He's moving him a little bit closer. So yeah, some basic ideas here for resource saturation. You want 2 per node, and then the third worker is going to be half as efficient. So once you start getting up to that point, you definitely want to think about expanding, often a little bit before that point, but that's a bare minimum idea that you can think of. I saw earlier Flop was harvesting 1 from the ridge, 1 from the geyser. You want to double saturate your geyser before taking any gas on the ridge. At that point, the third worker on the gas is equivalent to 1 worker on the ridge, which is another funny way of saying it doesn't really matter what you do. But you're never wrong to fully saturate your gas before you start looking at your ridge. So that's an easy thing that you can remember. Unfortunately, I missed this over here, but the quarry self-destructed and even went so far as to do controlled demolition, damaging the ministry, the stockade, and killing 2 masons. So the worker count is now in favor of Comicalflop, and that is just unfortunate for our Terran player. He has found out the hard way what that particular structure does and what that button does. The big red button tells you don't do that. So the Blackjack is out. It's a pretty potent unit, but you usually want a lot of them. There's a second one in production here. If I had to levy any advice towards MartinoForce, I would mention that you definitely want to be on top of your worker production, and it's always nice to constantly queue those. A general rule I think I can say for both players, actually, as Flop is only at 15 workers right now, but you think about how many seconds there are in a minute. There's 60. How many times can you divide 60 by 15? That's 4, which means that under normal circumstances, every time a minute passes, you should have 4 more workers from every one of your worker production queues, until some sort of mystifyingly defined number of having, say about 30 workers per base is like a good general rule. So yeah, just do that for a while, and eventually you will get yourself saturated. We do have a Protoss ball of Legionnaires led by this Captain Zealot, and they will go ahead and secure the middle of the map. Vassals amassing at the 9 o'clock still have not yet revealed themselves, and I'm not sure MartinoForce would know what to do if they did hit him. He's lost his only Cyprian. He's making some clerics. Big fan of that. I am actually recording this directly after the cast on the Invitational, so getting you guys that daily content, and this one is fresh from it. The old Hierophant graphic. Oh, how we don't miss you. And nowadays, these Matadors are actually unpacked and ready to go. So happy for MartinoForce as he starts to step back ahead in terms of the worker count. I like to control group all of my ministries and quarries on the same key, at least as long as they're in the same area, and see what I can do. But you know what? The Vassals are coming. The Vassals could easily descend upon this Terran arsenal, this force over here. It looks like he's somewhat cognizant of that. And he's thinking about dropping another defensive structure, maybe. No, he's going to put his Atlas right there. Oh, no. Oh, the humanity. The Vassals are going to attack at the same time as the front line comes under attack. Matadors deploy for fire. Definitely working out in their favor initially. Got another Huracan, got plenty of Blackjacks here. That's going to clean house over there. Meanwhile, the Vassals are committing absolute Mason genocide, massacring the worker line. MartinoForce down to 13, but he can activate his secret move. He's done it before. Oh, they fly away from the quarry, though. Is it going to be enough? The Hierophant drawing out some of the Huracans there. No crowd control coming, no Cyclops, no Cyprian. Those would be good choices here, but that's going to be it, though. I wonder if they were on Discord or something and MartinoForce said some foul language, but that will conclude our first match. Flop taking it on the board. Worth noting, he's the one who submitted this game to me, the set to me, so it wouldn't be surprising if he won the day. Let's see what happens in game number 2. Well, we are heading to Fata Morgana, a map by Week7 for game number 2. And actually, Comicalflop is also maybe playing as random, because he said he thought he played Protoss, but he's Terran here. MartinoForce rolling Zerg. Random versus random is a great way to learn the game, at least on a surface level. Another great way to learn the game would be to just play the same set of races the same amount of time over and over again. I don't know, however you like to learn it. But I like random. I'm a fan of it. We actually had an extended interview after Group B concluded of the March Invitational, the March Royal Invitational, where Nebelheim talked about how he thinks random morphs the opening of the game too much and basically constrains the choices that you would see, which on a long enough time scale, I can see that definitely being a concern. I'd like to see how it actually shapes up. Will it turn into that? Will his prediction be borne out? Well, it starts with random being taken a little bit more commonly. And hit him up, and after that, Hamster, both doing that is pretty interesting. Flop is going to go ahead and put down his Fulcrum. fresh off the back of winning on Axiom, wants to take another match off of his buddy here, who is going to go ahead and expand nice and quickly here. So this is not really meta for Zerg to do a low ground expansion because you can get harassed pretty early. What seems to be the meta right in this very moment is actually going for fast Vespene harvesting and getting a Larvosk up, followed by a pool, and then going for your expansion or hatch at the ramp or something like that afterwards. But I wouldn't expect somebody to intuit that. They'd have to actually be watching the competitive scene, and even though our competitive scene is kind of like the first thing that you probably see when you find out about this project, it's also kind of small, and maybe you don't see too many of the casts, or maybe you don't see that strategy in play. But nonetheless, we do have some fast Vespene for MartinoForce, so he is going to be thinking about what to do next. It is going to be double Fulcrum with the Cyclops being made. Well, Flop is clearly a Gosu player. Cyclops reign supreme. They are very good units. And actually, versus Zerg, I'm not even lying about that, because they have absolutely annihilated many a good Zerg. Nebline, when he was facing against Terran, the mech play with Cyclops from EUD definitely put him into a world of pain. But also, I guess apparently at some point, Eidolons were even good in that situation. So here's an interesting conundrum. MartinoForce has gone for his hatch, his pool, and then his den immediately after that. What is he planning on doing with that? He must have realized you don't need the pool before the den. This isn't Brood War, but maybe he was on autopilot for that. We'll see if he ends up using the pool for anything in particular, because the gas was clearly for the den, it seems like. But he can also afford a Vornath if he wants it. He's burrowed his worker out by accident, but he's now going to go ahead and saturate stuff, or maybe he'll just put down some defenses. Yeah, it looks like that's his game plan for now. These Cyclops could have walked across and gotten some action here. Treasury expand for Flop, so going to go ahead and take the tempo. And we do have the Vornath pawn coming. Remember, this is when it costs 100 Vespene, because it is on the old patch, the last main version of the game. Now it's a little bit cheaper on gas, but you need a little bit more on the mineral side to afford it. 75 of each resource. It's 5,100 on the old patch. So now we're going to have access to the Nathra core, as well as a host of Hydroth units, right? We'll see what MartinoForce wants. I think he's just going straight for ski-backed. Is he just going to go for like... Yeah, he is. Okay. He's going to... I think what he's doing at this point is probably... he's going to saturate gas next. So what I see from this position is MartinoForce is going to spam air units. He's got the one Circuit. He's got his expansion out. The Mason is going to get in, though. Yeah, the Mason's going to get in and it's going to see this. Now, does Flop know what he's actually looking at here? That's an open question. The other problem is that he's been making nonstop Cyclops, right? Well, I say nonstop. He's been making Cyclops. And that Mason did end up dying, unfortunately, so Flop not able to get much scouting intel done after all. But the scouting here, be damned, because the Cyclops will deal with stacked air. The question is, will the stacked air sit around and wait? It also, I mean, I could be completely wrong, and it could actually be ground units, but it just feels odd that you would go for double air structure and then go for a bunch of extra Vespene. You know what I mean? We'll find out what Martino is thinking. He's got a Hydra out. He can mutate that into a Bactylisk. Cyclops are now on the way. A third base coming. Martino going macro style right now. Now, the Cyclops aren't very good by themselves at pushing forward and attacking, but they will beat this army of Iziracore Hydra. Needs to fall back to the Circuit. He's making 2 pairs of Zeths, meanwhile. A lot of Vespene banked up right now. I'm guessing that's muscle memory hitting the wrong part of the grid, if I had to speculate. Third base hasn't been discovered yet. We got more Cyclops on the way off of the 2 Fulcrum. Now they're going to attack that hatch. We'll see how soon it gets canceled. He knows he has a little bit of time, so he's going to charge forward, making 3 more Hydras. There are a lot of Cyclops, so he's going to go ahead and get that canceled. The worker does end up dying. Another Circuit is now in production. You know, Cyclops don't suck versus Circuits. It's just like, usually there's a lot more Zerg that you have to watch out for, right? He's made these evolved versions of the tech nodes. He hasn't actually made any of the units, though. Now the Circuit is done. It's a little bit harder for you to walk in and snipe that. Flop will have to sit back and maybe think about what he's doing next. See him floating a lot of minerals, and he's definitely thinking about what to make. He's going to go for another Fulcrum for now. Wants to spend his money a little bit. Get the mineral count down while still keeping his gas high so he can tech up. And I guess that's what MartinoForce is doing, even though he spent so much Vespene earlier. He's going to get a little antsy about charging forward. He gets 1 Cyclops, losing 3 Zeths for the trouble. A Starped coming for Flop, so he won't actually be going for Tier 2 anytime soon. And we have like a soft contain over here, which would be perfect opportunity for air units. All right, the Cyclops are committed to trying to kill this Circuit. And I think this is probably the first big mistake that Flop has made this game as far as his army usage goes. Because the Zerg has built up a decent number of forces here. And even though he's got some more reinforcement Cyclops, well, I don't know. I'm not seeing a lot of workers at the natural. In fact, I'm not really seeing a lot of workers in general. Even though MartinoForce wasn't actually able to get his third base set up, he still has a lot more workers. And he's got enough Vespene to go for tier 2. Which is just waiting for the mineral count there and has it now. So he'll go ahead and grab the Iral Iris. That might be the fastest Iral Iris I've seen in a very long time. But hey, a second star pad. We've got Wraith production, a fourth Fulcrum. So even though Flop doesn't have a lot of workers, he still has a lot of money in the bank. In fact, maybe because he's not making so many workers. Take that, Neblime. Now, these Cyclops will be driven back. They're a little bit more expensive on this version, 100 minerals each. They're 75 on the new version. Would love to see these two duke it out again on the new version at some point. I'd like to, basically, whenever we get like a set like this, where it's clearly players that are new to the project, if they stick with it, maybe like in a week or something like that, when they play a little bit more, would love to see if they, what they look like when they're playing later on. What does their play look like? How have they evolved, right? We kind of did that by checking in with like Alexander versus Benno or Inozlix versus Roller Skates, stuff like that. We definitely saw some improvement between the matches and such. I was also looking around for where that Wraith went, but it doesn't look like it even got made. Maybe it got canceled? I don't know. I don't see it here. But anyway, Ski-backed Scab now turning into the Tethvith Swamp. Looks like our MartinoForce man wants himself some Tetzoricors. If he gets Tetzoricors, he can just charge this position and win. Oh, there's the Wraith. It is on top of the Cyclops. Hard to see. It's stealthed, dude. Now, the Ant Seal is out for some nice protection. Also has detection, so detection does a couple of things differently in Cosmonarchy than what people are used to. If you detect an enemy structure that's in production, you can actually see the progress bar. If you detect an enemy, say you were the Zerg player and moved an Ovaleth over here, you could actually see what was queued up and what was in the active build slot here for the Terrans and all that stuff. So you get to basically see what your opponent is actually doing as if you had their UI. It's a temporary little UI hack, you could think of it as, like you're hacking their mainframe, as a commander. Or I don't know what you would call the Ovaleth in that case, but, biohack, obviously. Duh. Third base coming up here for MartinoForce. We are gearing up for a good amount of power from this Zerg player. He's got a decent amount of hatch counts. He's actually made a Kafralosk, so he's thinking about what he wants to make from there. And he is going to go for Teths, so is going to get those bad boys out there. For a second, I'm so used to seeing Protoss because we just casted a bunch of Protoss games, and I thought for sure there was a witness dogging this Zerg army. I was like, oh yeah, Comicalflop has the eyes on his opponent. Well, not exactly. He's not Protoss this game. So, at this point, the Cyclops count is pretty high. If those Vultures laid down their lobotomy mines for a nice little bit of a stun to fall back on, he could actually pick apart this Zerg army before it could really do too much. But now, Martino taking the center of the map, slowly harvesting with a little bit from over here. The one Wraith is going to come over here and maybe see if it could do some harassment. But at this point, the attack force is in. And MartinoForce does need to be careful about that position. The Ant Seal driven down to no more shields. We have some Hydras out here. Could try to reformat this attack. Wraith has now killed, let's say, 3 workers. Indeed it has. So all the workers at that base are gone. And now the Cyclops are seeing if they can do all the spread damage. It looks like the answer is yes. So there's not really that many more Hydras, but the Tetzoricors are here to deal some very significant damage. And now the Ant Seals are being picked apart. Only one of them are left alive. More units popping on in here, but the Tetzoricors can't shoot up. They can, however, reveal the Wraith. So the Aziracore will attack it from afar. Send it packing. It's one of the few times where you mutate a unit that can attack ground and air, and it turns into a unit that can't attack air. So we have another worker kill. As a Zerg player, you can burrow your units at any time because you don't have to research that. And so that would stop the Wraith from being able to kill it. We'll see if Martino resaturates that position. He's going to go for the Bactyls. I don't know where he's mutating those exactly. Oh, I guess he's making them from the Kafralosk. Yeah, that makes sense. This actually blocks this mineral field, so that's a little bit unfortunate. But I guess on the silver lining note, he has the this mineral field is almost depleted, so soon that'll be a little bit more efficient. All right, adding Palladium and Scrapyard, making Goliaths. So if there's any anti-air at any point here, any air units for MartinoForce, the Goliaths can be very, very potent at dealing with that. Love to see 12 workers in production at this point. We actually have the advanced workers coming out, the Gosvaleths. So that's pretty slick. MartinoForce has a lot of money in the bank and can absolutely spend out a decent amount, right? But he doesn't have that many production structures at the end of the day. So let's see what he wants to do, saturating his center base. He's also sent a couple of workers up here to mine from the third base. And he's getting some harvests from the Gosvaleths as well. So interesting choice. 4 Wraiths. Yeah, listen, the one Wraith did a lot of damage. It killed 5 workers. Maybe 4 Wraiths will kill 20 workers. That's the hope for Comicalflop. He's actually making a Madrigal. We love to see that. 2 more Palladiums started over here as well. So I think definitely like MartinoForce is in a scary position in terms of the tech that he has. He needs more production and he needs to be able to spend that money. Still not borrowing these workers, so they will end up coming up short there. Hydra's being made on location. Quasi's sauntering over. The Bactylisks are here. What I always worry about this position if I've moved my whole army away is that what if the Wraiths just fly into my main from here? But it doesn't look like Flop is on the ball for that, so he will end up losing 2 of those Wraiths. 2 of them are still going to fly into the main, but there is a Spraith over here, just to give you an idea of how far the range is. It's quite powerful. And the Wraith's already kind of getting headed off by those Hydras. Nice heads-up play for Martino to get up there. Yeah, I think both of these players can easily improve from where they are right now, simply by building more workers in the early stages of the game. But because of the sort of lack of committed aggression from both of the players, it does feel to me like the style that they're developing, if you want to call it that, by going to fast tech and stuff, I mean, it's not unwise per se. If your opponent is stylistically not somebody who attacks into you, I just think that as they spend their money a little bit better, they're definitely going to get into a better position when it comes to the like having army out earlier and being more powerful and stuff. 2 Kafralosks now for MartinoForce. I wonder if I've ever seen him, a Zerg player, build a Kafralosk and then make Vorvs out of them. I think maybe one time I saw Jack Yelansky do that out of desperation. I think he only had that structure or something. All right, the Madrigals are in here in force. We've got 4 of them. I imagine there's going to be a lot of dead Zerg units pretty soon. But hey, it really depends on the engagement. He's actually upgrading all of his hatches into Kafralosks, and he's making a Mutat Spire, but the Mutat Spire doesn't give you any evolved units. So he can't use this until he makes more hatches, which is kind of a mistake. I wonder if he's realized that. The better the more advanced units aren't always the better ones. Sometimes you need that sort of baseline here. Now, Comicalflop does need to deploy his Madrigals here. Otherwise, they won't shoot ground units. They only shoot air units. So let's see if he does so. Frontlining with them right now is not the best moves. Oh, he's not actually deploying them. I don't know if he realized how they work. It looks like they are indeed going to drop with pretty much no ceremony associated with them. The Vorv even slowing one on the way out. Man, that could have been such a different fight if Flop had actually deployed his Madrigals. Now he doesn't really have anything back at home. He does have a Phalanx. Not really making any static defense or anything of the like. Doesn't have an Atlas coming. Not very much Vespene for this man. He did set up a third base, but it's very fledgling at this point. I think MartinoForce is just going to charge on in and wreak havoc on this man. There's no GG, because, again, these guys are probably on Discord anyway. But there you go. So what did we learn from that game? Definitely spend your money. Definitely, try to punish your opponent if they're doing something greedy. But also, definitely deploy your Madrigals. Deploy your Madrigals, boys. Let's see what happens behind door number 3. All right, for one final time, we will be seeing Comicalflop against MartinoForce today. I say one final time. It's only for today. Maybe they'll be playing more later. You never know. Martino in the top right as Zerg. Comicalflop in the bottom left as Protoss. And so far, it's been a little anticlimactic in that second game. The first game was a little bit more bombastic because we saw, the Vassal finally hit and stuff like that. But Flop is back to Protoss. Maybe he can be back to winning ways with the easy race. And Martino actually showed that he is able to jump up the tech tree here as Zerg, so maybe he'll go for a cheeky pool first or something. I'm not quite sure what he's up to here. I saw him idling a worker, but it looks like maybe he just wants to expand instead. He's going to go ahead and send that guy to his natural. So, since we're pretty deep at this point in the set, and this is our last game of the morning, I want to thank you guys for checking out Cosmonarchy. I do think that we'll be casting some more lower-level games in general. Maybe, I want to say, like, some of the stuff from the Gauntlet I definitely still want to cast. There's games that Lucy played in, and Enos played in, and Biddy B played in, that we never ended up putting on the channel. So it'd be great to go over those. And so I'm sure I'll filter some of those in and maybe cast some other funny meme-oriented games. I think I have some really old ones from Dead Infested and 3 Crow and stuff. So, you know, you might see some of those filter on out. And after the conclusion of the May Royal Invitational, we will probably be holding off on like another tournament until well after I'm situated with my move. So the next tournament will not be until June, probably mid or late June. We'll see about that. We'll keep you guys updated. But thanks for checking us out and popping on in. Always appreciate seeing the player base grow. Always appreciate seeing the careers of new Cosmonarchs. In this case, we've got 2 of them right here, right now. I wonder if Flop knows that the Madrigal deploys, similar to the Matador and the Phalanx, right? It has a siege mode style active ability. That's definitely what I think that would have turned the tide quite a bit there. Madrigal's pretty good units. But by default, they only shoot up. So with this hatch now complete, MartinoForce can see about expanding. Again, I do have to mention that I feel like the game plan he had in that last game, if he had gone for mass air, off of the ski back, then the Vornath. It's funny because he just upgraded everything, you know what I mean? And he didn't necessarily use the... I don't think he used the Vornath until way later in the game, after he was already at tier 2. So pretty surprising there. But I definitely thought that we could have been on for like a Nathracor or Skithracor spam game, and that Flop would have had to, you know, have a taste of his own medicine by using the Vassals against his opponent in the last game. This time around, he's not proxying, or I guess... Would you call it a proxy if it was down here? He's not putting it in a hidden location. The lattice is in his main. But neither player is scouting just yet. It looks like Flop is going to go ahead and do that now. He's actually checking top left. So I wonder if this is... Maybe he doesn't actually know where the spawns are. But also maybe he's just like, hey, I will build another proxy thing here. Vassal will come out. We already have a K-Grint over here. I think it's going to be anti-surface, though. Yeah, it looks to be. Hydrothon in the back. Vornath, indeed, before any combat units are actually made. So I think the Vassal will get a couple of kills, especially if Martino hasn't put 2 and 2 together about Burrow. Certainly will maybe deny some mining time and such. Second Vassal on the way as well, so increasing the damage a little bit. Hydroth about halfway complete. Still no combat units being made by our Zerg player. I do worry for the man. I feel like this is going to be... I always like when there is no GG from a standpoint of like, oh, that's kind of funny. Even though, obviously, these guys are like, again, I'm pretty sure they must have been on voice chat or something, you know what I mean? I feel like there would have been typing otherwise in general, like, oh, you built that, you know, what does that do? Or whatever. Like, this is the kind of thing where if you play RTS at a more casual level and you've never seen Cosmonarchy before, this is the kind of thing that I imagine, like, basically it's like the Cheech and Chong experience almost. Like, you fire it up like Luciferius and you just are like, oh man, I am high as a kite and I don't know what any of these units do. So I'm not saying that's what's happened here. I'm just saying that could have been the case. And even if it wasn't the case with the extracurricular substances, so to speak, it still is probably pretty fun sober, I would imagine. I mean, a lot of people do play it sober. We almost had Shambler playing while drunk one time in a tournament setting. That would have been hilarious. He probably would have typed way more. All right, 5 Vassals are amassed at the gates, so to speak. We have no anti-air, but it's been long enough that now the Hydras are here. I don't know. It's like Martino is like, wait, I need to upgrade my structures before I can make any units with them, right? I don't know. It's kind of interesting. He does go for the K-Grint. It is blocking his expansion a little bit here. And this is before the Vassals have come out. Or maybe he saw them with his worker over here. In fact, I would put good money on that. So now he can actually prepare for this, and it feels like the Vassals have waited too long to really do too much. He's going to go ahead and make a Spraith, surely. There it is. And is he going to do it at his natural? There it is. All right. And the Hydras are standing by as well. Just one Vassal poking its head in over here. Little does Martino know that there are 7 more coming. Third hatch on the way as well. So Martino will have a nice... he already has a nice worker advantage. And he will also have a nice... base advantage, right, in terms of being able to harvest from more gases. We do have a pocket expansion in the top left. This is the kind of stuff I missed. I remember when we had such a lower average skill level back in the old Ascension days. Even Ascension 7 still had some of this, and we just don't see crazy stuff like this anymore. So it's very, very cute to see this now. We do have 3 Vassals going down, but they have picked 2 workers, one of which was a gas miner, so... Always feels good to do that, especially if your opponent doesn't painstakingly reassign. Looks like another Spraith will be made over here. And because there's a sort of terrain wall here that stops you from actually seeing above it, the cliff blocks vision, it's sometimes nice to put an ovoleth in this area or some sort of air unit that you can use to see over the cliff so that your static defense can take pot shots at them before they really do anything. This third base is going to be caught by the vassals, but the Hydras can actually attack that. The question is this enough Legionnaires to overwhelm them? It looks like he's actually going to call them out. That Iziracore is eventually going to die inside the womb, so to speak. But actually, these Legionnaires didn't have the guts. And we'll see if I was right, of course. I'm always right. Now, okay, what does he do about that, right? So now his hatch is under attack, but it doesn't look like Martino wants to try to contest that, even though I think his Hydras could do really, really well here. Remember, this is the old Hydra. These bad boys got 2 armor pen. It's crazy. He's going to make another Spraith, I think, inside the main. Has a lot of SP and could go ahead and go for tier 2. What's Martino thinking? Oh, that's a Larvosk. Okay, that works too. Spend down some of your gas. We know that he does know about tier 2, so he looks like he's going to go ahead and make it now. Yeah, there he is. He's good putting in behind the mineral line. It seems safest there. So back in Flop space, I haven't really looked at him, but he's up to 3 gate, 2 lattice. You can say this about Flop. He does build a lot of production structures. I think if he added more workers and maybe took bases a little bit faster, he'd be in for a pretty good position. Like, even though this base... oh, I love the borrowed worker there to remax that base later on. Nice play there from Martino. I wonder how that sidestepped the vision there. Maybe it was like a larva that was left over and then turned into a worker. So now he's going to go ahead and retake it. He has this one circuit. He doesn't really have that much anti-surface defense in the natural, so I do worry about an attack here. But the Spraits, I guess, would pick off a lot of the vassals. His Zeths, okay, he is going to get a look at the units over here and maybe see about falling away. But instead, he's just massed up in the middle of the map. This kind of forces Flop's hand. He can't really do a counterattack at this point. And in fact, I think his forces are actually going to get bopped over here. He's going to have to cycle back and think about, what he can do. As Hierophant rallied over there to that sort of 2 o'clock-ish position to attack the third base. But at the same time, Martino's like, yeah, whatever, I'll just base trade you. He's going to come down here and see that there is, in fact, nothing. 5 Hydras in production. That hatch might not get canceled. I'm going to put money on it. He's like, there's no expansion here. And yeah, no cancellation on that. Martino doesn't need the money. He's got plenty of it. His tier 2 is done. But he's not really too keen on using that just yet. No static defense over here. There are some idols. They do deal splash damage, but they need to get into this fight a little bit sooner, I think. The Hydra's just shredding through everything like we all know and love. We're all used to this now. Hydras for the win. And now, Comicalflop has to return home. He's losing his production. One of his gateways has already fallen. Everything powered by this one pylon. 5 idle workers that only now got to work just in time for me to see them. Is Martino going to force target the pylon? I'm not so sure. Some of his units getting tickled a little bit, but the Warden is dying as well. Remember that there's still those pocket bases, but I don't know that Flop can actually hold out versus what Martino is doing. Yeah, the pylon going down. There's no more unit production. I think Martino's got it. 2-1 in this situation. Big fan of that. Coming on in and beating up his buddy who must have found the game for him. He's like, you want to play Protoss? I'll show you how I win. I win as Zerg. And of course this means that Terran is the weakest race because Terran lost 2 out of the 2 games that it was played in. Still no pylon over here though. And I guess Flop still thinks that maybe he can do something over here. There you go. He's going to put the pylon down, but it's going to be committed, and I think that's going to do it. GG or not. Maybe over voice. We'll see. Maybe they'll post a comment in the description. Thanks for submitting this one, guys, and thanks to everybody who popped in to see this lower level game that we normally cast. It was cool to see the start of people and sort of figuring out what ideas might be good, what ideas might not be. And I think, we might aim for some stuff to see if these guys can get improvements made to their play and get a little bit more familiar with what some of the tech does. But definitely stay tuned because we do like and in some ways need the more casual player base that only checks out every so often and jumps on and gets a couple of games in and doesn't necessarily play at a ridiculously high level. I hope to see some FFAs involving these 2 guys. I think that's where they might actually really shine. So, hey, the call has been made, the gauntlet cast. Play some FFAs with your fellow Cosmonarchs. And I'll see you guys very soon. GG.